The red carpet was buzzing with excitement, cameras flashing and fans cheering as Hollywood's biggest stars arrived one by one. Among the sea of glitz and glamour, a young fan, barely tall enough to see over the barricades, stood clutching a piece of paper in her tiny hands. Her eyes sparkled with anticipation as she scanned the crowd, searching for one person: Keanu Reeves. When he finally appeared, the energy shifted. Dressed in his signature understated style, Keanu's warm smile lit up the scene. Fans shouted his name, but the young girl's voice, soft yet unwavering, somehow broke through the noise. He turned, noticed her, and without hesitation, made his way over. The moment seemed ordinary at first, a star taking time for a fan. But as she nervously handed him the paper, her words froze him in his tracks. What she revealed next didn't just capture Keanu's attention, it brought the entire event to a standstill. What could a young fan possibly say that would halt Hollywood's brightest night? You won't believe the story behind her revelation. Keanu crouched down to meet the young girl at eye level, his calm demeanor masking his curiosity. The paper trembled in her small hands as she extended it toward him, her voice barely audible over the crowd. "Mr. Reeves, this is for you. It's really important." The actor took the paper gently, unfolding it with the same care he might reserve for a priceless relic. His brow furrowed as his eyes scanned the handwritten words. The crowd, sensing a shift in the atmosphere, grew quieter, their collective attention fixated on this unexpected moment. Keanu's expression changed, first confusion, then shock, and finally something deeper, more personal. He stood, still holding the note, his gaze distant. "What's written on it?" Someone from the crowd shouted, but Keanu remained silent, his focus entirely on the young girl. "Who gave you this?" he finally asked, his voice steady but filled with a weight that hadn't been there moments before. The girl hesitated, her lips trembling as though she wasn't sure if she should answer. "My mom," she said at last. "She told me to give it to you. She said you'd understand." Keanu glanced around, searching for someone in the crowd who might provide clarity. "Where's your mom?" he asked, his voice softer now, almost pleading. The girl pointed to the far end of the red carpet. Keanu's eyes followed her finger to a woman standing apart from the crowd, her face partially hidden under a wide-brimmed hat. Even from this distance, there was an air of mystery about her. Before he could ask anything more, the girl added, "She said she's sorry." That simple statement seemed to hit him harder than the note itself. His shoulders tensed, and he looked back down at the paper, rereading it as though trying to decipher a hidden message. The energy on the red carpet shifted from excitement to palpable tension. The fans, the photographers, even the other celebrities, it was as though everyone could feel that something extraordinary was unfolding, but no one knew what it was. Keanu took a deep breath, folding the note carefully and slipping it into his pocket. "Stay right here," he told the girl gently, then started walking toward the woman in the hat. As he approached, she turned and began to walk away, quickening her pace. Keanu hesitated for a split second, then followed, leaving the crowd buzzing with speculation. The young girl, now alone and slightly overwhelmed by the attention, stood silently, clutching the barricade. A journalist leaned in and whispered, "Do you know what's going on? What did you give him?" But the girl only shook her head, her wide eyes betraying a mix of fear and loyalty. Keanu, meanwhile, caught up with the mysterious woman as she rounded a corner into a quieter alley. "Wait," he called out, his voice firm but not aggressive. She stopped, but didn't turn around. "Is it really you?" he asked, his tone softer now, almost vulnerable. Slowly, the woman turned, her face finally visible under the brim of her hat. Keanu's expression shifted again, this time to something unguarded, a mix of disbelief and recognition. "You weren't supposed to see me," the woman said, her voice trembling. "Not like this." "Then why send her?" Keanu asked, motioning toward the red carpet. "Why the note?" The woman hesitated, glancing around as though the walls themselves might be listening. "Because you needed to know the truth," she said. "Even if it changes everything." Keanu's jaw tightened. "Changes what? Who are you? Why do I feel like I've seen you before? The woman looked at him, her eyes filled with regret. Because you have. Before he could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps interrupted them. A security guard rounded the corner, his face a mix of confusion and concern. Mr. Reeves, are you okay? The event is waiting for you. Keanu glanced back at the guard, then turned to the woman, but she was gone. The alley was empty, save for the faint echo of her hurried steps fading into the distance. Frustrated but determined, Keanu pulled the note from his pocket and read it again, searching for clues he might have missed the first time. Back on the red carpet, the young girl was being ushered aside by event staff. She clung to her momentary place in the spotlight, but her eyes constantly darted toward where Keanu had disappeared. She knew something big was happening, something far beyond her understanding, but she also knew her role and it wasn't over yet. Inside the event, whispers circulated like wildfire. Some speculated the girl's note contained a long-lost family secret. Others theorized it was connected to a charity, a hidden past, or even an old promise. Keanu's absence only fueled the intrigue. Meanwhile, Keanu found himself replaying the brief encounter with the mysterious woman in his mind. Her face, her voice, they stirred memories he couldn't fully place. And the note, though cryptic, seemed to hint at something deeply personal. He knew he couldn't leave it unresolved. But how would he find her? And what would he discover if he did? As the night wore on, the unanswered questions weighed heavier on him. Who was the woman? What truth did she claim to hold? And why had she chosen now, of all moments, to reveal herself? The answers seemed just out of reach, and Keanu couldn't shake the feeling that whatever came next would change everything for him, for the young girl, and for everyone watching this story unfold. Keanu returned to the red carpet, his mind racing but his face calm. The cameras immediately locked onto him, flashing in rapid succession, as reporters shouted questions about what had just transpired. He gave them his characteristic polite smile but offered no answers. Instead, his eyes sought out the young girl, who was now sitting with an event staff member near the edge of the carpet. Walking over, he crouched beside her again. "Hey," he said gently, his voice cutting through the noise. "Can I ask you something?" The girl nodded, her small hands still gripping the edge of her dress nervously. "The woman you pointed out," Keanu continued, "is she your mom?" "Yes," the girl replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But she said I wasn't supposed to tell you much." Keanu considered this, nodding thoughtfully. "It's okay. You've done more than enough." He smiled at her, a warm, genuine smile that seemed to ease her tension. "I'll figure it out." For the rest of the night, Keanu went through the motions of the event, greeting fans and speaking to the press, but his mind was elsewhere. Every now and then, he'd glance at the note in his pocket, the words burned into his memory, "We need to talk. There's more to your story than you know. She's your answer." After the event ended, Keanu asked his team to find the woman and the girl. It didn't take long for them to track down their hotel. Celebrity sightings rarely stayed private for long, but by the time he arrived, their room was empty. The concierge informed him they had checked out just hours earlier, leaving no forwarding address. Frustrated but undeterred, Keanu returned to his home, determined to make sense of the puzzle. He spent the next few days delving into his past, piecing together fragments of memories that didn't quite fit. The woman's face haunted him, there was something about her eyes, her voice, that felt achingly familiar. He reached out to old friends, former colleagues, and even his family, hoping someone could shed light on her identity. Each call brought him closer to a realization he couldn't yet name, but no one had definitive answers. Then, a breakthrough came in the form of an envelope, delivered to his doorstep without a return address. Inside was a single photograph, a younger Keanu, perhaps in his early 20s, standing beside a woman who looked exactly like the one he'd seen on the red carpet. She was smiling, her arm looped through his, and they looked happy, intimate, even. On the back of the photo was a note in the same handwriting as the message from the girl, "You've forgotten. Let me remind you." The address scribbled below led Keanu to a small coffee shop on the outskirts of town. He arrived early, his heart pounding as he scanned the tables. And then, there she was, sitting in the corner, her hat resting on the chair beside her. She looked up as he approached, her expression a mix of relief and apprehension. "I didn't think you'd come," she said as he sat across from her. "I didn't think I'd find you," Keanu replied, sliding the photo across the table. "What's this? When was it taken?" She studied the photo for a moment, her fingers tracing its edges. "A long time ago," she said finally. "Before everything fell apart." Keanu leaned forward. "Who are you? And what do you mean, everything fell apart?" The woman sighed, as if summoning the strength to explain. "My name is Anna," she began. "We met years ago when you were just starting out in Hollywood. It was intense. We were young, passionate, and maybe a little reckless. But then life got in the way. You got busy with your career, and as she paused, her voice catching. I found out I was pregnant." Keanu's breath caught. He stared at her, processing the weight of her words. "Pregnant?" he echoed. Anna nodded. "I didn't tell you. I didn't know how. And by the time I worked up the courage, you were gone off filming in another country. I didn't want to hold you back, so I raised her on my own." "Her," Keanu repeated, his mind flashing back to the young girl on the red carpet. "She's my daughter?" "Yes," Anna said softly. "Her name is Lily." Keanu sat back, his emotions a storm he couldn't quite contain. He thought of all the years he'd spent searching for meaning, for connection, and how this revelation reframed everything he thought he knew about himself. "Why now?" he asked finally. "Why tell me this after all this time?" Anna's eyes filled with tears. "Because Lily wanted to meet you. She's always known who you are, but I was scared. Scared of what you'd say, scared of how it might change things. But when she saw you were going to be at that event, she begged me to let her go. She wrote that note herself." Keanu felt a pang of guilt mixed with gratitude. "She's amazing," he said. "You've done an incredible job raising her." Anna smiled faintly. "She's a lot like you, you know. Curious, kind, stubborn." For hours, they talked about Lily, about their past, and about what the future might hold. By the end of the conversation, Keanu knew one thing for certain: he wanted to be a part of Lily's life, no matter how complicated it might be. The next day, Keanu met Lily again, this time in a quiet park away from the prying eyes of the public. She was shy at first, but as they talked, her confidence grew. They bonded over books, movies, and their shared love of motorcycles. By the time the sun set, it felt as though they'd known each other forever. In the weeks that followed, Keanu and Anna worked to rebuild their relationship not as lovers, but as partners in raising Lily. They navigated the challenges of blending their worlds, all while keeping their story private. For Keanu, every moment with Lily was a gift, a reminder of what truly mattered. Years later, as Lily stood beside him at her high school graduation, Keanu reflected on the journey that had brought them there. The red carpet, the mysterious note, and the woman who had risked everything to tell him the truth had all felt like a distant dream. But the love he felt for his daughter was real, and it had changed him in ways he never thought possible. Sometimes, life's greatest revelations come when you least expect them. And for Keanu, that moment on the red carpet was the beginning of a story he would cherish forever.